Hi, everyone. We are live for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about Step Into Your Moxie, the intersection of communication and leadership. My guest today is Alexia Vernon. She is a powerhouse here in our community here in Las Vegas and beyond. Use hashtag YFEVegasTech. With any comments or questions you have for Alexia, make sure to join us in the chat and feel free to tweet me at Jackie M. Jensen any questions you have along the way. Looking forward to it. Hi everyone, I'm Jacqueline Jensen. I am founder and COO of a company called TicketCake.com. TicketCake.com was one of the first companies to relocate to downtown Las Vegas to be part of what's called the Vegas Tech Fund, and it's part of the Downtown Project, which is headed up by Zappos CEO Tony Hsieh. It's a project aimed to put $350 million into revitalizing downtown Las Vegas. We've been here about 18 months, and we love the community here in Las Vegas. This is the 8th episode of Young Female Entrepreneurs Vegas Tech Edition. I stream the first and the third Wednesday of each month, and I'm coming to you live today from the Innovation Center, which is a one-of-a-kind co-working space located in Las Vegas. Anyone can come here to co-work, and if you want a free day pass, feel free to tweet me at Jackie M. Jensen. Now, Young Female Entrepreneurs is an online organization that moderates connections between entrepreneurial women in their 20s and 30s. It was started by Jennifer Dono. She's the host and founder, and you can find her at Jennifer Dono on Twitter. At 28, Jen was featured as the champion of change by the White House for her work with young female entrepreneurs. And I met Jen at a conference this past March in Seattle. It was called Lexi, and we became friends. I appeared on her show on episode 58. Back in April 2013, and when Jen told me she wanted to bring what was happening on young female entrepreneurs online to the Vegas tech community, I was immediately on board. So some business to get to. The youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com has an awesome thing called the Bootstrap Book Club, and I just joined for their last book that they read, and it was Gary Vaynerchuk's The Thank You Economy, and it was an awesome read. So be sure to check out youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com for the next book announcement. And then also, you can go to youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern for YFE Chat. And last week, it was Erin Condren who was the guest, and it was such a great interview. I love watching Jennifer interview powerhouse women, and this was definitely one of my favorites. So be sure to check out episode 85 with mompreneur Erin Condren. Now, on to Alexia. Alexia is a dear friend of mine and really is a powerhouse in our community. She was branded Moxie Maven by the White House, and she's been empowering companies, campuses, professional associations, and community organizations to build a new generation of heart-centered, high-impact communicators and ethical leaders. She has worked with C-suite executives, TV and media personalities, TEDx speakers, community and business leaders, and entrepreneurs. She's the creator of a program called Step Into Your Moxie, which I was a part of and had a great time. It's a women's empowerment platform that teaches presentation skills, negotiation strategies, conflict resolution, and personal communication. She's also the founder of a new thing she just launched called the Influencer Academy, and that's a 9-month first of its kind women's leadership development experience, and it's kicking off to a great start. She shared her advice with media such as CNN, NBC, The Wall Street Journal, Women's Health Magazine, Fox Business News, CBS MoneyWatch, Career Builder, Forbes.com, the list goes on and on. And so I want to welcome Alexia to Young Female Entrepreneurs and start by saying congratulations to you, Alexia, on your first pregnancy. Everyone in the community is so excited for you and your family.
Thank you so much, as am I.
So let's kick off. So throughout your career, you've had experience with helping all kinds of people find their voice. Now, why did you choose to focus on women in particular for things like TEDx Fremont East, which you organized, and the Influencer Academy?
As I was growing up, I was definitely immersed in a lot of different female cultures. I was a ballet dancer since I was about 3 or 4 years old. And although there were some boys that I had the opportunity to dance with, it was certainly a very female-centered space. Going to school in Seattle, I went to an all-girls school, middle school, and high school. And when I went to UNLV, majored in women's studies. So there was this first chapter that was very female-centric. And by the time I got to graduate school, I thought, as much as I've loved the women's work and the women's groups that I've been a part of, maybe I should start to engage with some men. So during the beginning of my career, as I was working as a trainer, and then ultimately as a coach, and I taught at the university level, public speaking for a period of time, I was working with women and men. And then I had this experience that really prompted me to say, okay, well, I love working with the guys as much as I love working with the gals. I feel called to work with the women even more. So let me explain. I had the opportunity to be the closing speaker at a social enterprise conference several years back. And for those of you who speak at all for a living, you know it's really rare that you get the opportunity to engage with a group prior to going on and doing your thing. Well, this particular event, I got there a few days early and was sitting in the audience during the Pitch Fest. At this particular event, the participants, there were 100 of them, were 50% women, 50% young men between the ages of about 19, 20, upwards to 30. And each person had a few minutes to present his or her bright, beautiful idea for how to fuse best principles of entrepreneurship with whatever their social mission was to be able to solve a really significant global problem. And all of the pitches were pretty fantastic. So fast forward now to when the finalists were being announced. And out of the 10 finalists, there were 0 women. And even though it's been a few years, I still get really riled up when I remember that experience. As I often do whenever I have a lot to say, I took to social media and started tweeting, why did this happen? Where are our women's voices? And the responses were somewhat surprising. So again, 50% women, 50% men. And it wasn't like a tribe of Gen Xers or baby boomers or traditionalists were making these decisions. It was the people in the audience. And what I learned, both from the online conversation as well as from talking to people afterwards, were 2 key things. Number one, when people said who they voted for, yes, clearly based on the results, they often picked men. But what was surprising was the criteria they used. They were looking for people who they felt were great pitchers, people who were loud, who projected a lot of confidence, who took up oodles of space, which tends to skew towards a more masculine model of delivery. What was really good, however, was when I asked, so which were the pitches that really moved you to your core, that made you want to get involved, give money? Almost every single time, the pitches that were selected were the pitches from the women. But yet, it wasn't computing that was relevant from a who's a more effective pitcher perspective. It was more about, well, that's somebody I trust. So it was in that moment that I realized, okay, I've always been really passionate and I've been working on this issue of communication and public speaking leadership for a number of years. I really want to support women who are doing fantastic work in the world, recognize, A, how to be able to integrate their natural speaking style with perhaps some of the more masculine ways of delivery that are effective in terms of getting your message heard, and at the same time be able to dial up that storytelling ability that is so integral in terms of connecting with an audience.
That's such an interesting story. I remember the first time I heard that, I was just like you. I mean, it's like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's really, really a powerful story, and I'm glad that you experienced that, and so you can share this with the world. If you had 3 tips to give to young female entrepreneurs out there for finding your voice, being a better presenter, getting your message across to an audience, what would come to your mind first?
To actually piggyback off of where I ended, to know your story. So the irony of having that experience move me is that although I'd been speaking a lot, whether it was in front of college audiences, at that point I just moved into doing more keynote speaking, was that I was really comfortable when I was presenting myself as an expert. I'd have my nice PowerPoint slides, I'd have all my bullet points, yet I wasn't so good at actually being present and vulnerable and talking about me. And I find that so often, particularly when we know that we have a solid platform, we have really important information to deliver, we focus so much on our knowledge at the expense of connecting with an audience. So I would say first and foremost, know your story. And it doesn't have to be, your whole life story every time you get up and speak in front of a room. But if you know that what you ultimately want an audience to walk away with is X, Y, and Z, think about those moments in your life where perhaps you've struggled with X, Y, or Z, and show where you were in that struggle. Take us into that experience, because that's where an audience can say, oh, if she's been there, okay, I can do this. And then, of course, it's not just about airing your dirty laundry. It's naturally looking for, how do I segue into how I made those changes, how I was successful, so people can see your process. In terms of just overall communication strength, one of the areas I see even women who are in the C-suite still struggling with, and the research bears this out, is around the topic of negotiation. Sheryl Sandberg talks a lot about this in Lean In. Even when we think about women going in and applying for positions, that men just typically need to see a couple of categories where they feel qualified in order to apply for a job and feel like they're in the zone to be able to negotiate. Women, according to her research, need to see that they're qualified in every single category. And as a result, because so often that's just not possible, when they finally do get into the room, they often don't negotiate. And this crosses generations. So while we know that a generation or two ahead of us who are young professionals, so women who are in their 40s and 50s, are leaving approximately $500,000 on the table by the time they get to mid-career, the consequences still are impacting us. So AAUW, the American Association for University Women, recently did some research and saw that young women and young men who are equally qualified, the young men are still earning approximately 15 to 17% more in their first jobs. And it's not because of some inherent discrimination. For the most part, it's because men are asking and women are not. So getting comfortable asking for what I like to say is slightly more than you would ordinarily think you deserve, because typically women underestimate their value. So that extra amount that pushes you into that somewhat awkward zone is an opportunity for you to actually ask for what you're worth. And you said 3. The third one would be taking your time when you speak. I am somebody who is wired to speak a mile a minute. Hopefully I'm not doing that too much today. And as a result, when we do that, we tend to interject a lot of vocalized thinking. Ums, you knows, likes, so's. And it does a few negative things to our communication. Number one, it suggests that we're young. And not to say that we want to hide from our age, but if we're trying to be able to connect with a multi-generational audience, we don't necessarily want to sound as if we are coming straight out of high school or college. Second, what it does is it undermines our own confidence. When we hear ourselves using lots of that vocalized thinking or those filler words, we start to say to ourselves, oh, I don't sound intelligent. Oh, they're not going to believe in the mission that I have. And then it starts this negative self-fulfilling prophecy where we start doing it more and more and more. And a way to begin to slow down is to simply focus on connecting with that audience you're speaking with. And whenever you don't know what you're going to say, and you know this, Jackie, because it was something that we worked in quite a bit in Step Into Your Moxie, put a period on it, stop, smile, find your next thought. And even if you had to stick a period in the middle of the sentence, what happens when you slow down, you find that next thought, you weed out that vocalized thinking, and because you've altered your vocal variety, people think that what's going to come out of your mouth next is going to be really significant. They listen more, they engage. It's a win-win for everybody.
Oh, those are such good tips. Thank you for sharing those. I'm going to jump over to Twitter into the chat room. So I received a tweet from Hippie Fit Mom on Twitter.
Love it.
Yes, and she's in New York, and she comments, I know I have issues with confidence, and other women as well. Confidence in women sometimes is viewed as a negative thing. What's your reaction to confidence, women having confidence, that being a negative thing?
And this is actually something that, again, was mentioned in Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. My take on it is this, that when confidence is wrapped up in humility, It's a beautiful thing. So there's all different kinds of ways we can project confidence. We can smile and be confident. We can ask questions and be confident. We can admit when we've made a mistake and take responsibility for it and be confident. And when we do all of those things, not a problem. When confidence becomes so much about performing who we think a confident person should be, and we disconnect from our authentic selves, that's when I believe it can come across as being conceited or being a bulldozer or some of those negative stereotypes that often get pinned on strong women.
Yeah, I agree. And then also in the chat, I just want to shout out a couple of people who've joined us today. That's great. We have, let's see. We have Tina from Texas who's joining us. So thanks for coming in and tuning in. And we, let's see. We have Felicia from Washington. So just two of the people in there. And we also have Jennifer Goss from Tracky. And she gives a shout out to you,
Yay!
Alexia. Yes, she says much love to you and to this YFE community, and to Alexia for inspiring women in our Vegas tech community. So good shout out from Jennifer there. So to move on, the next question I have for you is about planning a TEDx event. So your second one is coming up next month on Thursday, December 5th. What's the experience like? What advice would you give to other TEDx organizers? Maybe you can speak a bit to what's happening on the 5th all around the world. Just tell us more about TEDx and what it's like planning it.
Sure. TED and TEDx have a very special place in my heart for so many reasons. First, that's how Jackie and I first met. So for those who don't know, she was a TEDx Fremont East women speaker at our inaugural event and was outstanding. But before I get too far ahead of myself, each year, TEDx Women picks a day where around the world, communities are hosting their own localized events to be able to shine a spotlight on local speakers and thought leaders who may not always get an opportunity to talk about their work and tell their stories. And around the same time that I did the keynote that I mentioned before that was at this pitch fest where I got all riled up about women not feeling like telling their stories was a worthwhile form of pitching, I had heard about TEDx Women Day. I knew that Las Vegas did not have anything that was going on specific to this. So I was sharing this information with one of my good friends, Jessica Tomlinson, and she said we should organize an event here in our local community. And there's a huge lesson in that. Number one, that sometimes when we have a great idea, we keep it to ourselves and we think I should take this on and I'm going to make it be amazing. And part of why I believe our TEDx events have been really successful, both in our inaugural year and it looks like from ticket sales, year 2 will also be pretty successful, is that it's been a partnership between Jess and me, both in terms of organizing and hosting, and also having a really robust community to handle all of the things that need to be done to put on a TEDx event. The other recommendation that I can give for people who are interested in potentially organizing one is to think about your process for curating speakers. It can be really complicated, and there's pros and cons no matter what strategy you take. One of the things we were passionate about was not just reaching out to the fantastic women we knew for a couple of reasons. One, it's nepotistic, and two, even though we are connected to some extraordinary women, of course, we don't know everybody and everyone's work, and when you put out a more generalized call and you allow people to submit, it ensures that the different kinds of talks that are being given are broad, touch on a variety of different topics, and everyone has access. For anyone who might be listening, I think we have put together some really stellar speaker guidelines that allow us to be transparent about what we're looking for and set applicants up for success, and I'm happy to share that with anyone. Before I shut my mouth and let you ask me another question, in the last couple of weeks, I've had so many people reach out to me and say, how do I pitch a TED Talk? And so I want to address that because I often find that for female entrepreneurs, we create this unnecessary obstacle to getting ourselves booked as a TEDx speaker. And it's this, that when we think of positioning ourselves as a speaker, typically it's around our area of expertise, our brand, our company, the 4 things we know about X, Y, and Z that we want to impart to an audience. And most TEDx organizers are looking for something very different. It doesn't mean that entrepreneurs don't possess those skills. Rather, it's about being able to lead in with one's own unique experience and vantage point on a topic so that it doesn't skew to self-help, it doesn't skew to entrepreneurial business tip. It feels like a TED main stage talk in terms of us being able to find and pull together the parts of ourselves and our story in a way that nobody else could give that talk, because it's about us and what we've been through. And when you pitch that way, you're much more successful in getting selected.
Those are really great tips. And if you guys want to check out TEDx, FremontEastWomen.com, you can see the lineup of the 2013 speakers. For those who are in the community, you'll recognize a lot of these names. Kathy Brooks, who's part of the Downtown Project's Downtown Doghouse project. And there's Amy Jo Martin. She's part of the Vegas Tech Fund. Renee West, president and COO of Luxor and Excalibur. Just a great list of women. So definitely check that out. And I can't wait to see the event.
To that last principle, yes. I was just going to say really quickly, those are three really interesting examples, because you would think Kathy Brooks, she is doing a whole project around Downtown Doghouse. She would be speaking about her business and dogs. The focus of her talk is actually on serendipity. You also mentioned Amy Jo. You would think, well, she's probably going to be talking about social media or digital branding or something around her area of expertise, when in fact she's looking at original research she's conducted around female success factors. And even Renee West, the first woman on the Strip to be president of a hotel, isn't talking just about her pathway to success. She's talking about how to be able to connect vision with movement. So again, people who are figuring out, even though they're experts and they've done extraordinary things, what is their bright, brilliant idea that no one's talked about before that they can own and put out in the world?
I love that. I can't wait for December 5th. And there's still tickets left. So TEDxFremontEastWomen.com. If you're here locally or if you're coming to visit during that time, it's really going to be a great event to check out. So Alexia has a great blog on her site, and she covers a variety of topics that affect people in business and are also personal matters, and she just so many different topics. Your blog is really great, Alexia. I read it all the time. You're welcome. Do you have any tips or tricks for people who are maybe starting a blog, and can you give us a sneak peek into a future blog post?
Mm-hmm. Those are so many great questions, and they're things that I still reflect on to try to continue to dial up the impact of the blog. I would say that the more you are clear of who is reading your blog and who you want to be reading your blog, the easier it will be to curate material. I'm sure there's other people who have a similar challenge to what I do, which is not that I don't know who those readers are, rather that there's so many different kinds of readers. So I've got folks who are entrepreneurs, I have people who are looking to develop speaking careers, and then probably 50% are HR leaders who are looking for actionable strategies to use with their employees. So there have been plenty of times where I've thought to myself, how do I write for all of these audiences? And what I've been able to hone in on is when I stay true to the idea of creating strategies and techniques for heart-centered, high-impact communication across both one's professional life and one's personal life, I usually get it right for the majority of my audience without feeling like I'm being redundant week after week. In order to help me in that process, I definitely keep an editorial calendar. So even though frequently over the last couple of weeks I've had a spark of an idea and I deviated from that calendar, I don't ever show up on Tuesdays when I write my posts and say to myself, what am I going to write today? I always have something to go to if nothing better has presented itself. I also, even though all of the material is my own, am constantly looking for books and looking for new businesses, new programs, new things that I can comment on myself to be able to expose my audience to other great stuff they may not know about. One of my posts that actually just came out today, shortly before I got online, is around grief. And one might think, what the heck does that have to do with heart-centered, high-impact communication? One of my friends and colleagues, Christina Rasmussen, had sent me her book. And when I read it, I thought, okay, if I just talk about this from the context of how do you recover from grief, it makes no sense for my audience. One of the subjects, however, that I've heard from a lot of people on my list that they're struggling with is resiliency. So sometimes it's also looking at what's something pertinent that's happening, a new book, a new program, etc., and then making sure that I cull together the tips that make sense. So in this case, how do you reprogram your brain to be resilient? That communication with yourself that's necessary.
That's great. We have Gabrielle Norton in the chat room, and she asks, do you recommend posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday? She's heard both. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the second option would be Tuesday or Thursday and Thursday. She's not sure which schedule she should stick to. And what about weekends? Do you always post on Tuesdays, or have you done any research about why Tuesday is a good day?
Great question. So I actually don't post on Tuesdays. I write on Tuesdays, sometimes Monday, so that the post goes live on Wednesday. And then that live post gets automatically pulled into my e-newsletter, and it becomes my e-newsletter that goes out Thursday mornings to my list. Now, is that the only way to do it? Absolutely not. I like having my blog post be what goes out to my list weekly because, of course, it saves me time, it saves me energy, and gets what I'm writing exposed to a larger audience. What I will say, and I don't have statistics to back me up, but I've done enough online marketing programs that have told me the same thing, and I've seen it, that when you post Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, so the middle of the week, people are not just coming back to work and being inundated on Mondays with a ton of stuff that they have to get back to, and it's not Friday where they've got one foot in the office or one foot at their computer and the other foot out the door and into the weekend. I don't recommend writing on weekends because a lot of people probably are not looking, and if you do have your blog post feed to a newsletter list and you've got people's work addresses, it's just going to sit in their inbox for them on Monday and probably get deleted pretty quickly.
Okay, those are good tips. Well, you can find Alexia online at alexiavernon.com, and that's where you can find more information about her Moxie Mastery program as well as the Influencer Academy for the next cohort. You can find Alexia on Twitter at Alexia Vernon. She's very accessible, and you can ask any questions you have that come to mind after that you want to ask her. And you can also find her on Facebook at facebook.com/Alexia Vernon Empowerment. Thank you so much for joining me, Alexia.
My pleasure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
And then just a little bit of business before I take off. I am taking the holidays off, but I will be back in January 2014. It's been such a pleasure partnering with young female entrepreneurs for this series to highlight entrepreneurs that are in our Vegas tech community and bring up topics that are important to the young female entrepreneurs that are here. We've talked about how to maximize Google Analytics, to why Las Vegas aims to redefine what healthcare is going to be. We've covered a lot of great topics in these 8 episodes. So this series will continue into January 2014. It'll either be housed at youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com or downtownpodcast.tv. And I look forward to continuing to ignite dialogue with people in our community. If you have ideas for a guest or a topic we should cover, I will be around until the end of the year and beyond on Twitter at Jackie M. Jensen. So feel free to share any ideas you have about guests or topics. And thanks to Jennifer Dono and the team at Oval Life for doing such an amazing job these last 8 episodes. It's been so much fun getting to know different entrepreneurs and connecting with people online through young female entrepreneurs. So follow me on Twitter at Jackie M. Jensen for the latest updates, and I will see you all in January 2014. See ya. Thank you.